figuring out technology. We're going to get started today. What I have to share with you guys on assumable loans, those of you guys here in person, please sign in. The sign-in sheet is here, so you might have to take it, send it back that way. Because I can give you the slides. You're going to want to hold on to this information because I think that this topic is one that if the conversation comes up, you're going to go, oh yeah, I remember something about that, but I don't remember the details. And so you're going to want to have the slides to reference back to, or take a lot of notes really fast. But I want you guys to ask a lot of questions. Assumable loans are something we haven't talked about in the past because it really hasn't made sense. I mean, interest rates were so good. Why would somebody assume someone else's loan? Except there are some advantages, but for the most part, it didn't always make sense, but it does now. Hang on, I'm trying to find my slides here. Oops, I got to share them with y'all so y'all can see them. Actually, y'all can see them this way, can't you, Christy? Yeah, I'm gonna share screen.
Yes.
I'll share screen. Then y'all aren't staring at each other too. All right. So who has ever done an assumable? Donna, you've done an assumption? How long did that take? That is, okay. Nobody else has done an assumption. Okay. Has anybody had anybody ask them about assumables? I mean, are you guys here because yeah. Robin, what's that conversation been? I want to find out.
Exclusive right to sell.
Good.
Possibly your rate's assumable. It's advertised that.
Yeah.
And then I didn't. Nobody wanted to talk about it. So
yeah. Yeah. So Robin Phillips was sharing that she actually had a conversation with a seller and just inquiring whether or not they had an assumable loan, which I think we should all be asking on all of our listings, just because it's good information to have. So we're going to go through these slides. You guys can also do some screenshots if you wanted to for all of the details, but a few things just to go over with you. I did create, it's been about 10 years ago, I created a Facebook group. I barely knew how to do Facebook whenever I created this private group. And the name of it is Your Realtor Community for Business Growth. It is mainly real estate agents in this area, but not always. But it is for realtors only. I don't have any affiliates in there on purpose because I want this to be a place for you guys to go to share information with each other. Don't share listings because you all have access to the MLS. There's no reason to put your listing in here. There's no reason to put your open house in here because it's also on the MLS. However, you know, if you guys have a client that's looking for a particular property and you hadn't been able to find it, maybe you could post something in there, you know, looking for a, whatever it is, do you have something coming up soon? Or, you know, if you've got, hey, I need a mold abatement to be performed on a particular house. Does anybody know of someone who does that? It's really a great resource for that. And then I'm always trying to provide some education to you guys. I try really hard not to do it really from a big salesy standpoint. I just want y'all to have information. So if you're new, what? Yeah, that's fine. No, actually, let me have it up here so I don't forget to grab it. But if you're new to the group, so if you're going to ask to join, be sure to scroll through and grab some stuff because there's good charts and other information in that group that would be good for you just to save on your phone and have handy. I really need to go through there. I know there's all kind of little things that you could do with Facebook groups that I haven't explored. Like I could tag some of these charts that would be good for you to have on hand and put it in a certain section so you guys could always go back to that when you're looking for how long since someone filed a bankruptcy do they qualify for a mortgage loan, things like that. Short sales, since you're going to be working short sales, Donna. But just know that this group is for you specifically. If you scan that QR code right now, you can go straight to that group and then do a request or just search it on Facebook. And then this QR code, if you wanted to scan it, it's a QR code that goes straight to saving all of my contact information on your phone. It's just a VC card QR code. These will also be on those slides that I'll be sending out to you. All right, so what is an assumable loan? Does anybody on Zoom have any assumable loan stories they want to share?
I have a listing that has a VA assumable loan, and I have a lot of interest right now in buyers that want to use the assumable loan because it's 2.87.
Yes, that's a great one for assumption. And I think that we have quite a few of those sitting probably in the MLS right now that are similar scenarios. Have you, so you've got the information from, you know what, this will be a great, I'm going to ask you some questions as we go, Tommy, on using that one as an example. So what is an assumable loan? So an assumable loan is where it's a mortgage loan. I'm not speaking on the behalf of banks. This is just from the mortgage side of things, where a buyer purchases a seller's home and takes over their mortgage, takes over the term of the mortgage as it is. Now, one scenario that we see a lot more often is death or divorce. If you have a spouse that is not on the loan, that is going to be retaining the property as part of the divorce, an assumption can take place at that time. And the advantage of that is they're assuming the terms of that loan. So if you've got a divorce situation and it's been a couple of years and the terms on that note are favorable, then it may be that they would prefer to assume that loan rather than have that spouse refinance that loan into their name. And then death is another scenario.
Who would decide if they get to assume it, or if the servicer that would decide if they could assume it or if they could?
Well, yes, because they basically, yes, because they have to go through the qualifying process. Yeah, it does not avoid the qualifying process.
Is every loan assumable though?
VA is always assumable. Well, almost always. The almost part is dependent upon whether or not the owner of the seller is making their payments on time and they've not defaulted on escrows or any of that, then it would be an assumable loan. And the almost is there because there may be a situation with that particular loan for that seller that would disqualify it from being assumed. Same thing with FHA. There's not specific FHA loans that are not assumable. If it wasn't assumable, it was because of something between the servicer and that seller. Yeah.
So they can assume a VA loan if they're not VA, or do they have to be VA to assume a VA loan?
That's a great question. We're about to cover it.
Okay.
The question was whether or not you had to be a veteran to assume a VA loan. We're going to cover that. There are some situations in which a conventional loan is assumable. It's hardly ever assumable. And I didn't even cover that. And I can do the research to tell you in what scenario a conventional loan would be assumable, but it is very little. There's very few scenarios where that would apply. So here's what you need to know about assumable loans. The pros of an assumable loan is the buyer gets the seller's lower interest rate would be the incentive for that. The buyer saves thousands of dollars on closing costs because you're not closing again. You're assuming a loan. And there's no appraisal needed. That was a question we had the other day, whether an appraisal was needed on an FHA assumable, and it is not. So where you have a market that's, if you were in a market where the market was declining, you don't have to have an approval, an appraisal, because think about it. I mean, you're assuming the note the way it is, the value doesn't matter. And then the seller probably doesn't have to reduce their sales price if they're allowing someone to assume their note. I mean, there is the advantage to the buyer because they're getting lower terms.
Are you gonna share these slides or do I need?
I'm going to send you the slides. It's my gift for attending.
So it's got, so the difference in the existing loan and the sale price the buyer is paying for, it'll roll over into that.
Nope.
existing-
Nope.
two separate ones?
Nope. Yep. No, nope. It's not two separate loans. We're going to cover that in just a minute too. So the disadvantages is that the seller could face financial risk if they don't do the assumption properly and do the release of liability. They've got to go through the servicer and do it right. Otherwise, if the assumer defaults on the loan, it will affect the seller's credit history. So they have to follow the process. Also, a veteran, and we're going to cover it more specifically VA loans in just a minute, but the veteran does stand to risk losing the entitlement of their VA eligibility, their VA entitlement. So I'm going to cover that in just a second. Yeah.
If they're a veteran and they do this assumable loan, are they eligible then to do another VA loan?
We're going to cover that too. God, y'all got all these great questions. So, you know, I think about, you know, Donna, we were talking about short sales. And because of the market that we're in, when COVID happened, when at the very beginning of COVID, I thought, oh crap, here we go with short sales all over again. I mean, I really was getting my notes back out from short sales and thinking about hopefully we learn from that and we do it better so it doesn't take so long to process these darn things. But I really thought that's the market we were about to be in. And then of course rates dropped and then we had a flurry of business and you guys know how it went from there. It was not exactly how I predicted it to be. But part of the process for short sales took so long because servicers do not staff up in the short sale department. They also do not staff up in the assumption department. And so you have to think of the process of these assumptions just like those short sales. Guild services billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we still only have 2 people in our assumption department. And we're one of the largest servicers in the United States, especially since Wells Fargo got out of the business. So please understand that assumptions are a great option, but they're not fast closings. They're just like the short sales in terms of that. So let's talk more. Yeah.
So what would you recommend is as far as a buyer broker, the 60-day closing or?
No, it'll be more than that. And it all, the conversation in the closing dates is really going to be, you're going to have to, the seller is going to have to call the servicer and ask the servicer what their processing time is. And that's what your closing is going to be based on. And I would buffer it another 30 days after that.
I was gonna say that 2.5 to 3 month.
Uh-huh.
That was a VA, that was why that was quicker.
Mhm.
And I will say the only short sale that I ever got to close took me 6 months.
I remember those short sales took a long, long time. And this is a qualifying, I mean, going through a qualifying process.
So I've done a lot of short sales, so it kind of correlates with the short sale, kind of the same. I mean, like you said, there's not enough.
There's just not enough people. It's a staffing issue as much as anything.
So we just kind of take
Well,
short sale.
Plus, I mean, it's staffing, plus it's just like a loan process. What makes a loan process go faster is because there's enough of my people harassing people for the paperwork that we got to have in order to make it happen, right? I mean, let's just face it, people get busy and we don't get that pay stub, or we don't get the documentation that we need unless we remind them and remind them and remind them. Well, if you only have 2 people in a department, there's not enough people to sit there and go, listen, I've asked 3 times, I gotta have this. Your closing is getting held up. We don't have anybody holding people accountable for that. We're counting on them to get that in. So does it help if you're more organized and staying on top of it? What do you need to have turned into them? Have you turned it in? Have you turned it in? Let me see that checklist. Let's go over it together, make sure it's turned in. Does that help? I can't imagine that wouldn't help move that along faster, because like I said, nobody else is holding them accountable for the paperwork. All right, so VA assumptions. VA assumptions are owner occupied. VAs are, as remember, VA loans are owner occupied. All of VA loans. VA loans, all VA loans are assumable. And no, the assumer does not have to be a veteran. But you still need to make a phone call to the servicer and make sure they allow an assumption.
Oh,
Because some of the servicers have to go directly to VA because they're really more middleman than they are actually servicers of that VA loan. So again, the seller needs to make the phone calls and get the process and procedures. If it were me, again, I admit I'm a control freak. I'd be on the speakerphone with that seller to hear and take notes of what the process is so that I could help the seller through that process of assuming a loan.
if this is breaking, I'll turn it down or find headphones because I.
Hey, Cindy, take, I think. Mute.
Yes.
Hit mute.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking for it. I don't have my glasses on. Hold on.
It's so funny. The new buyer on a VA assumption does have to meet the lender's credit and income requirements. Now, remember, VA doesn't have a credit score requirement. It's a lender that has a credit score requirement. Our credit score requirement is a 540, but a lot of other lenders have credit score requirements on VA loans of 640. So their servicers, their servicer. Their guidelines are their guidelines. It's not like you get to shop around for that. So that part's really important. So the new buyer must assume all mortgage obligations. Remember, VA loans are assumable, are escrowed. They're assuming the note. The escrows will be reset based on the new buyer's cost of insurance and taxes. They're not assuming the taxes and insurance of the seller because it's going to be different. You may have a seller that's over 65 and have disability on their taxes. And so the new buyer is going to be reset based on what exemptions they qualify for. Same thing with homeowners. The new buyer must pay the funding fee. Remember, on VA loans, there's a funding fee. And so the new buyer is going to pay into the VA's funds 0.5% of that loan amount. The only exemption would be if the purchaser, the assumer, has VA service-connected disability and the funding fee is waived. Does anybody have any questions on that? Surviving spouses do get the benefit of the service-connected disability also. Yeah, you guys, that's another thing I think that's not talked about either. A surviving spouse of a veteran gets the veteran's benefits.
Do they have to die?
Well, you should have thought that through a little different.
Too late now?
Non-veterans, assuming a VA loan, has to pay that VA funding fee. The veteran is still legally liable for the loan, so they have to ask for the servicer to release them of liability. And that part is really, really important. If you sell to another veteran, then that entitlement that your seller veteran has will get released so they can go use their entitlement again without being a subsequent use entitlement. So if a non-veteran buys and assumes the veteran's loan, then the veteran seller still has their entitlement tied up. So but a veteran buying from a veteran releases that entitlement for the selling veteran, and we would use the buyer veteran's entitlement for the new loan. I mean, for the existing loan that's being assumed. Does that make sense? I said that right? So, so there is that substitute in there. If you sell to a non-veteran, well, I just covered that. So, I mean, really, a veteran selling to a veteran on a VA loan is the best of the scenarios. Then they just need to get a release of liability, and you're clear.
So if they sell to a non-veteran, their entitlement is, so they're not able to use that.
A veteran can use their eligibility, their entitlement multiple times. If they have, and that's a good question that you brought up, because if you have a VA loan, say you own a home in Oklahoma City, you use your veteran and you used your VA financing as a primary, because that's the only way you can do a VA loan, and you get transferred here. And the terms of that loan is just so good that you're like, you know, this is a great rental property. I'm going to go ahead and keep this home financed with VA. And I'm going to just rent it out. So you're going to move to this area. You can do a VA loan again. The amount of down payment required will depend on a subsequent use calculator that we have to use. It's an entire worksheet, and it has everything to do with the balance of your existing loan and the loan amount for the new loan. And then we will be able to determine if you need a down payment, and if so, how much. And it will also depend on how many other times you've used your entitlement. But that's a good question. So that'd be the same calculator or worksheet that we would have to use if a veteran allowed their loan to be assumed by a non-veteran, but they want to go purchase a new home. Whether or not how much they could purchase without having to have a down payment would be dependent upon this worksheet. So it's going to be unique to the scenario. But that's a great question. Yes.
Is it only on homes, or can you assume loans for land and things like that?
For your VA entitlement,
Well, or just an assumed loan?
the VA is for primary residence. Yeah.
But,
So they would have to have a home on it.
okay, so like if you do like a,
The Veterans Land Board. I don't know that those are assumable.
okay, I mean, I don't know that one.
No, but that's another good question too. If you guys are not familiar with the Veterans Land Board land loans, those are 10% down for the veteran, and they're fixed rate mortgages, and they're really good rates. So if you have a veteran looking at land, you really need to be looking at doing a Veterans Land Board loan.
And there's Texas that too.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's Texas Vet Land Board. Yep. I used to have him come up here once a year and do a class. It was a 2-hour CE, and I could reach out to them. We stopped when COVID happened, and it's just not something I've really thought about since then. But that's a really good class if you guys are selling land, if you can find land. All right, do you guys have any questions on Zoom? On what we've covered so far? Okay. Good. That means I'm answering questions as we go. All right, so this is an example of the scenarios in which you would not have to have the VA approval to move forward for a VA assumption. I mean, you still have to call the servicer, but the process is a little bit different. So upon the borrower's death, if you have a veteran that has passed and you have a family member that is wanting to take over the note, call the servicer, because that might really be a great option to assume that loan. If there's a legal there's not legal separation in Texas. So if there was a divorce and the spouse became the sole owner of the home, the process is streamlined. It's not the same as the process would be as a full assumption. We will be still determining whether or not they have the willingness and ability to repay the loan. Because that's a CFPB thing now. The assumption does not require the transfer of rights of occupancy and the owner remain the beneficiary. That would be another scenario in which that you would do an assumption. So the assumption did not require the transfer of rights of occupancy and the owner remain the beneficiary. I would think that that would apply to a veteran being incapacitated. Robin, you read legal stuff all the time. Okay, your husband does, never mind. We'll get Larry to look at that one. And then also another streamlined process of the assumption is when the assumption occurred as a result of a spouse or child becoming a joint owner of the property. So that would be something that was an illegal award of the property. So if you have any of those funky scenarios, have the owner of the, the borrower call their servicer and see if the scenario would apply and what the process is. It still all starts with the conversation being with the servicer and the owner of the property.
You made a comment earlier, and I don't know if I understood it correctly, that
Okay.
you don't have to close on these assumptions.
Mhm.
So if you're going to assume a loan, and let's not even worry that there's a balance. You have to borrow for it.
Right.
What do you do about title? What do you do about the title?
There is a title search that's performed. My thoughts are if I weren't dealing with Jeff and heart surgeries and all that other stuff, I would have done more research for you guys for this. But my thoughts were that this would still close, but it probably closes on a HUD 1 because you're still going to have a setup of escrows. You're still going to have y'all's compensation that needs to be addressed. And any other, you're going to have still a title search because we're not going to, we got to know, has anybody done work on the property and is there an outstanding mechanics lien or is there a tax lien or is there a mowing lien? Like, is there anything that we need to make sure gets cleared prior to? So my assumption was it closes on a HUD, but not your standard mortgage closing process. But good question.
It seems like everything would go through as it would on any other transaction, except the loan part stays in place.
I
Because you
agree.
still want a survey, you'd still want to, do inspection, the whole.
Or at least a T47 for your buyer.
Right.
I will, even though the lender's not going to require all that stuff because they already have a loan file, as a buyer hired representation, representative, I would think would be due diligence.
Yeah.
But I will do the research with the title companies and get some more information on the logistics of the transaction itself. But from a marketing standpoint, if you really were going to expand this conversation and really turn this into an opportunity to have more conversations, then my thoughts were, where else besides calling the title office would you go to pull all of the VA and FHA transactions during the time in which interest rates were at their lowest? I'm thinking at least more specifically the last 2 years. Do y'all have access to those lists? All of that stuff is reported to MERS, so I know that information is available. So I'll make someone make me a list of all of the things I need to research. I'll research that too. Yes.
I never pronounce it right, but is it like on Matrix or is it pronounced Rainy, whatever? That report shows you like the mortgage part, and it shows you exactly when they originally took out the mortgage.
Well, does it tell you what type of mortgage was used though?
No, that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Right. It just says, I don't think it does. It just says the date.
What type of mortgage? Yeah, you could do a guess, but surely there's, I mean, because it's reported to mirror, so there's a list that's available. And we have, I bet you, I'll do some research. I think I know where I might be able to find that information through our MMI service.
What is mirror?
Mirrors is Mortgage Electronic Reporting System, I believe. It's a national database that tracks all mortgage transactions.
Is that accessible to the public or? is
I don't think, I
it-
think the data is, so that's why I think that that's where MMI and some of those other services pull that information from.
Michelle, I bet Remine will make the list.
That's what I was wondering. I bet you guys, I mean, because there's so much data in there.
They do
If I have
their-
access to it, I know you guys have access. It's a matter of figuring out what software you can use.
Because on Remind, I pulled my property up and it's
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta mine the data for sure. Interest rates right now, I mean, someone's buying down their rate to the high fives if they're getting anything in the fives. So I would think interest rates of anything in 5 and below would be a good candidate for promoting an assumption. And then those listings, I mean, my thoughts are, if you guys just had the data available, if you knew when you went to a listing presentation, what kind of loan they had on their property, and you knew the terms of the assumption, and you just say, here's the process for assuming loans, but you've got to call your servicer and get this information, but I'd love to promote your listing this way. If you'll get this information for us, it might be a great way to attract more buyers. Now, those were some of my thoughts in how you would really promote this more. Or you just take this information and have it available in case people ask. But I'm always thinking, okay, what can I do that's different than what someone else is doing to move properties? I mean, basically, that's our job, is to move properties in our area, keep real estate market moving. And so, can you use this information to do that? All right, oops. We'll close the chat. Pushing too many buttons here. There's two different schools of thoughts too on marketing this. Do you go after, to me, I would be looking, the sweet spot to me would be a low rate and a small gap between loan amount and what would be the projected sales price, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but we either work with someone who has a lot of money or they got no money. And so finding a buyer that has the ability to write the difference, to write a check for the difference in the loan amount and the sales price is pretty hard right now. So the sweet spot I would think would be competitive interest rate and not a big gap. Right? But for some people, there's a loan officer friend of mine in Nevada, and this is working really well for him for those higher end properties where people really want that low interest rate, and they do have the cash to come up with the difference. And so they're able to take on these low interest rates and cash flow better. So,
So I'm thinking about the lower end stuff that we have around here, that the buyer would have been an FHA or a VA buyer, and an investor assumed those things.
Yeah, in other states, this is easier too, because you can get a second lien. So you have you have your assumable loan, and then you can just get a piggyback second for the difference. Texas makes it a little bit harder. So on my list, whoever's making my to-do list, I don't think anybody's making that list. Donna's getting her computer up.
I will start me a list right now. If you-
I've already forgotten what I was supposed to do.
Well, it's look for the assumable, look the loans at a certain time rate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The data for coming up with that. Did any of y'all make my list? Tansy, did you make my list? Okay.
No, I was just gonna say, you're gonna have to assign that, but the thing that you were just gonna do is look for the ways that Texas makes it more difficult to piggyback. Is that
Yeah.
where you? with that?
Yeah, I'm gonna look and see who would do a piggyback second on that.
All right, so
Texas is-
Donna definitely got it.
Yeah, Donna's got it.
So Angela just looked up on Remind and it does show the lender and the interest rate. If it's correct, but you know, asking
Yeah,
the seller to research that for you is. make sure.
yeah. Yeah, so more Remind does have the loan program, lender, and the interest rate.
Does the CAD not have that? Do they have just that it was a mortgage? They don't have the mortgage information or realist?
All they have is the deed of, all they have is the legal documents recorded.
Okay. What about realist? Does it go into mortgage details?
Tell her remind us.
Remind us.
Remind. Okay.
Mobile app for Remind.
Yeah, and Angela was saying you can do a mobile app for Remind too. So you can sit in line at Chick-fil-A and pull up sellers.
Within the 1 mile vicinity.
Yeah. Oh. Anyway, and then I'll check on those. We can't do HELOCs on purchases. Wouldn't that be so cool? Some states can do some really cool stuff. What?
Remembering what he liked.
Home equity line of credit. So in some states, literally you guys could sell a house and they can issue a HELOC at the time of purchase. Whereas here we have to use like our renovation loans if someone's needing some extra money for repairs and stuff.
I think Oklahoma
It
allows
does.
that.
Keeps
Okay.
us, I think that's why our values don't fluctuate like other states. Yep. Yep.
So if a veteran has
Hang on, Tansy.
if a veteran has a home, but they wanted to use their eligibility again, can they remove that in the same state, remove that homestead and move it to another one to get their eligibility back?
Yeah, you just have to use, if a veteran is moving from a homestead owner occupied in one state to Texas or another state, they can remove their homestead designation and go purchase a home using VA financing again and homestead in the new state and use their eligibility. It's just subsequent use. So whether or not they need a down payment will depend on that calculation.
But you can't do it in the same.
No, you could do it in the same state too. You can't move from Sherman to Pottsboro and do that without a reasonable explanation that an underwriter really believes that you're not just acquiring an investment property and calling it homestead, you know? All right. Now here's the catch. So, time period. It could take 2 to 4 months to get these processed, which again is why you have to ask the question with the servicer. How long does it take for you to process these assumptions? And then you're also negotiating, how you're getting paid is something that you need to make clear that it's going to be paid by somebody. Who's going to pay it and when are they going to pay it? So that's not part of the transaction and it can't be financed in. It is part of the transaction. It's not part of the loan. And the seller is not getting, the seller is getting paid the difference. So in theory, just like they do now, it's part of their net proceeds, right? Because they're determining the sales price. Just know that you need to address that. All right. Now, like I said, we've got a servicing department. There's 2 people in the servicing department. Here's our requirements for for a VA transaction assumption. We're going to have proof of income, proof of assets. We are going to look at ability and willingness to repay.
In their term.
Cindy, I think you came off mute. Cindy's got phone to me. All right, and just a couple of other slides that you guys can just take pictures of. But again, the assumption details, it will be in the slide packet that you guys are going to be receiving. Whenever I said that a VA loan isn't 100% assumable, depending on whether or not the seller is in good standings, we are going to be checking the payment history of that seller. I don't know why I don't have the ability to mute someone. But I don't. And then there is some processing fees that are involved. It's $320. We are going to collect that money up front. It is part of the title research, and an appraisal is not required though. So you don't have that turn time or fee. Title research turn or fee. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hey, Cindy, can you mute? Hey, Cindy, can you mute? All right, we're going to try this again. Are you guys hearing me okay? Ellen? Okay. All right. And then at the closing will be the fees collected up front. Fees collected, which would be your 0.5% funding fee, and then the full processing of the assumptions anywhere from $600 to $800.
And that varies from when you get one.
Correct. Yeah. All right. The FHA loans. A lot of the same applies on FHA loans, so this will be a lot faster. The FHA loans are assumable, and the assumer must apply for the assumption. And there is credit and income qualifiers. Again, that is going to be specific to the servicer, and you don't have a choice. The servicer's guidelines are their guidelines because you have to work this through that servicer. So again, there's going to be a fee that's going to be paid up front. Each servicer is going to have a different amount, but that'll still give you a general rule of thumb, what to expect. And then the things that we're going to be looking for is we're requiring a 580 credit score on the VA, on the FHA assumptions. And we are going to be looking at debt to income. I mean, they're going to have to qualify just like they would for a mortgage loan, because we're accepting payments from them and going to have to assume that they're going to make all their payments on time. But there are different provisions, just like there was with the VA for divorce situations. I am going to reach out to, and this would be a good source for you, business source for you guys. I'd be reaching out to your family law attorneys, because, and I was even thinking about this with the soft pools that we're able to do now. You know, we can do these soft pools. I was talking to, just a little side note on why it's so important that we're having conversations with the divorce attorneys before divorces are filed. I had a customer of mine working through one of our local attorneys, and she's 12 or 18 months into a divorce that's still not finalized, and they're trying to decide who's keeping what house. And his assumption, her husband's assumption was she couldn't afford the house that they have, but she dearly loves the house and really wants back in it. And so she just assumes he's right. Well, turns out he's wrong. She can't afford that house. And so us being able to have the conversation sooner rather than later, they've wasted a lot of time squabbling over this house because he kept saying there's just no way. And she's saying, but I want to try, but she was scared to even ask. So the sooner we can have these questions, and then she's already on that loan. So we don't have to talk about an assumption, but what if she wasn't? And it's just a matter of letting attorneys know that, hey, an assumption is an option. And you may not have to go through this long drawn out process, but even if so, they've been squabbling for this long. What's 4 months to go through an assumption process, especially when a decree could be filed and they already know up front that she qualifies for it. It's just a matter of getting it processed. So there's just so much of this information that people don't know that they need to know. So think outside of the box. Who needs to know this information and how can I help them? Because we just get so set in the ways that we do business and the things that we have conversations about that we just forget to really expand our mind and what ifs and what could be. All right, your guidelines, again, continue to be expanded. You're going to get copies of this so you can show a buyer and a seller what those guidelines generally look like. The assumption processes are going to be pretty much the same from servicer to servicer. The things that would be different is the credit score requirement in the turn time. I am going to just put this up there for anybody who I am not booking in appointments for the next couple of weeks. My husband does have to have a double bypass surgery. And so I'm just waiting on that to be scheduled before I can tell you what my availability is. Apparently this isn't going to be a quick thing. So I am going to try my best to be an attentive nurse. But if you do want to sit down and have conversations on marketing strategy or even a better explanation, we were just talking about how do you even explain closing cost? What's common fees? What's not common fees? How do you figure interest rates? How do you talk to someone whenever they go, well, I'm shopping interest rates? Well, guess what? If you don't shop it right, you're just freaking wasting your time. Because you really, to shop interest rates, have to be asking the exact same questions at the exact same time and getting the rates the exact same moment to really shop your rate. But if you don't understand how all this stuff is put together, then you can't answer the question. And at the end of the day, we're all professionals and we should have this information. You don't have to be experts, but you need to have enough information to know where to go to get more information if you don't feel like you're an expert. So if you want to sit down and have conversation, I do have a calendar electronic you guys have access to, and you can book your own appointments. But I have it blocked until I have a better idea what's going on. And then I have some really cool classes that I put together for you guys that will kick off for the Success Series. And that will start in March. So there'll be 6 classes, they're all CE, and I doubled it up, and you have 12 CE options in a 6 weeks period of time, because I'm just going to go back to back, 2 hours with 2 hour CEs, 2 different classes. So we'll go fast, but you guys always get copies of the slides, so you'll know what's going on, and you can ask any of those questions off. I always stay to answer any of your questions, but then you'll also have all of the resources. But how many of you guys have heard what ChatGPT is? So blown away by. I've been using Jarvis or Jasper for a long time. ChatGPT is really taking over, and it is really so helpful for you guys in the market. I mean, in real estate. It'll help write your property descriptions based on SEO. It'll help you come up with YouTube scripts, titles, meta tags, description, and scripts. So all you got to do is stick the phone in front of your face and repeat what it just came up with. You ask the question and it goes out there based on SEO instantly. It is incredible. And I am going to have a class on that too, how to use ChatGPT in your business.
It'll even write a song.
It'll even write a song. And it is Valentine's Day, so check it out, because if you don't know how to write a poem and you want to be really throw your spouse off and write a poem for him, he'd write a song or write a poem. ChatGPT, check it out, but I'm going to actually do a class on that too. But if there's any other classes that you guys, any other new tech programs, whatever that you run across, let me know. Some of this stuff I want to do more workshop, because it gets boring just sitting and listening to me talk for an hour. And then Tansy, we are coming to your place on Friday.
Friday instead of Thursday. It's usually the second Thursday of every month through 2023 on John Gordon's book Training Camp, with the best do better than everybody else. So if you're curious, come see us.
Yep. And if this is the first week, this is the first kickoff. Actually, you could join at any of the sessions and not be behind. They don't build on each other. Each concept's different, but it is a mastermind. It's a round table. and that is available to everybody. And I'm doing something else tomorrow. What am I doing tomorrow?
PT or BT?
BT, girl, boy, Tom, GBT. What'd you say?
Chat GPT.openai.
Here. It's a website. Here, I'll show you.
I just pulled it up. That is AI, and that's kind of scary.
It's scary, but guess what? It's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our boys had to write some code in Python for
It's that
something.
one's-
And it just, I mean, it just spit out code line after line faster than you could even see it.
Yeah,
It's a little scary.
Okay, so what she was saying is my grandson's master in his career field is gonna be non-existent with this AI.
pretty much. Pretty much.
If anybody writes blogs, this could, ChatGPT can start you off. and
Yep.
then just write your blog.
It'll write your blog for you if you just if you just start it. Y'all, if I had my login super, well, we got enough time. If y'all are really curious, I'll show you.
I'm really scared of it.
So, you know, what's really fun is like, if you have, for instance, a social media post and you start a story, like, I'll just say, I took my husband to the hospital yesterday and we thought we were going to get a stent put in his heart, and it turns out he needs a double bypass. All right. So I could just say that in Chat GPT or Jasper or whatever AI you're using. And you choose the tone of your voice. So I could say, I want this to be witty. I don't know what would be witty about that, but let's just say I pick that. Then it would write the story for me. And it would give me 3 different options. And I choose whether or not I like these 3 options, or if I want it to generate another story. Or say I want to explain this information to my 6-year-old grandson in a language he would understand. Then I could change it to explain it to a child and put the age of the child, and it would rewrite that information to me instantly. Yeah.
So the only thing you have to be aware of is that all the information and data for ChatGPT is pre-2021. So if you're looking for data scrapes or anything like that, it's all going to be prior, but inclusive of 2020.
I don't think Jasper I think it's more current then.
Jasper doesn't do what ChatGPT does. So there's several
Different AIs.
and the ChatGPT 4, which is the newest one that came
Mhm.
out. But from my understanding is most of the data aren't up to the current time. So that's one of the primary things you have to keep in mind, that you're going to be a year behind on scrapes.
On the scrapes, but the SEO portion of it is current SEO.
Keywords, SEO. all
SEO
that
and the
stuff.
keywords and stuff are current. Yeah.
It's all immediate. So.
Yeah. So it's just an incredible tool to use. I'm always looking for, how do I get more done in less time, utilizing technology not to replace touch, but to allow me more time to be more one-on-one with people.
About
And
4 business plans in the matter of 15 minutes.
4 business plans in 15 minutes
15
using
minutes, which would
AI.
normally take me, 2 to 3 weeks for business.
Yeah. Well, and I've got friends that have written training modules just using AI, because you go ahead and put the basic information in there, and then it will pick up data to help put together the training manuals, and in a short period of time. It's pretty incredible. So I'm going to do a class on that just to show you guys how you could be using it in your business. Again, it's just information. You use it however you want, but I don't mind providing you guys this information. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? This isn't a timed class, so if you guys got to go, it's fine.
When you were talking about I'm sorry.
My list, my to-do list. Good.
You were talking about the second, any second mortgages or key locks and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Texas allows wraparounds and also seller financing. So those are good items to keep in mind.
But you have to get service or permission on a wraparound, and that's the only thing on a wrap. You can't wrap a mortgage. You can wrap a bank loan though. Angela, will you take a picture from the back of the room, please? I forget to do that and I need to do that more often.
Does Texas still have the 80/20 loans? I know they did it for a while.
I have not seen 80/20s. I have seen 80/15s.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
those since about 2016.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day for a stated income loan too, and there are some people that are brokering out stateds, but we bank statement loans, those are easy to, I mean, we do those 12 months and 24 months, personal and business returns, but stateds I haven't seen. I'm not a big fan unless really it shows, I mean, if there's some stability in the business. I've been doing this way too long and plan on continuing to do it for a while, so I don't want to put anybody in a loan that I'm not comfortable with. But at the same time, I legally can't say no if someone qualifies, you know, so it kind of puts me in a tough spot. So if y'all are sending me someone that you know doesn't qualify, but there might be a loan program, don't send it to me. If you think they might be out of business in a year and not be a good risk for us. Those are all y'all have some really good questions. What else? Okay. Tiffany, what are you thinking about all this? Since you're newer to the business.
I probably need to retake this class.
You'll get the slides though. And that'll help. And then I'll do research on some of the other information. Maureen, you got any questions?
I keep looking at these like.
You're just blown away on the AI, aren't
it's
you?
Like,
Yeah.
keep looking at it. There's one of them. It's like pass my biology test. Like,
No, you guys, they've used ChatGPT's been used to pass medical tests and in the bar.
oh
Yes.
my God.
Well, they're getting busted for it. Obviously,
And
because
I
there's a
just
lot
read a
of,
93 on something I could have just put in there. I had to read all that.
they're getting busted for it. A lot of it, you have to still put your thesis statements or papers in through queries that are college, SCCS, I forgot the name of them, but a lot of them are plagiarism. There's a lot of plagiarism that's involved with it.
Yeah,
so they get
because of
busted on
plagiarism, they're really monitoring the
So you have to be
ChatGPTs.
very careful.
Well,
Yeah.
they said they could write a research paper for you in an hour.
Yeah.
And I used to teach in English and I knew how much time it takes.
Yeah.
To put a research paper.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like Robin, at what point do we, I mean, like, how do we hold ourselves accountable? Because right now it's morality that's holding people accountable. But
Oh, and
does
that's
anything,
wrong.
and that is, yeah, exactly. And that's the scary
I have
part.
a 17-year-old. That's just not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Y'all, I have a funny story. My granddaughter was homeschooling. My husband homeschooled my granddaughter last year. And you know, the kids, they're just so smart. They're smarter than adults. And so, she had utilized technology too much on a paper. And so she got a really nice lecture on, you know, I mean, it was so blatantly obvious, you know, it's like, what the heck were you thinking? But anyway, it was a good lesson for her. But the teachers I know are having to watch that closely.
Well, they're comparing it to when in my era, there was a lot of this talk and consideration where they started using calculators.
Yes.
Transition from doing manual calculations to calculator.
Yeah.
They had the same.
Yeah, we're talking about the difference in AI and comparing it to the usage of calculators versus your brain, or even knowing the steps in the process to come up with it yourself, which is why teachers went to show your work.
Yeah. And it's gonna create more work for students because now the education system is gonna have to create something that's going to be even harder because we gotta get past that.
Yeah, do you do the research papers in class? You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it goes, but I'm still gonna teach the class to show you guys how to use it. Maureen's still shaking her head over here as she's researching all of these possibilities.
Looking at all the different apps, there's so many of them.
All right, yeah,
created a monster.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Right here.
yeah, I know.
See, I would.
She'll be
say-
teaching the class for me. Maureen, you want to teach the class? I'll give you the content. It's scary and exciting all at the same time, for sure. All All right, yeah, yeah. All right, well, thank y'all so much for attending. I know the weather is yucky and you guys still showed up and I appreciate it. Hope you learned something today. I'll get you the slides and I'll do my research. I won't cheat. I won't use chat. I'll do my research and get y'all some information.
How do we know when we're texting you? You're not just using
A bat. You may not. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it really hasn't hit me. So what hit me this morning is he's got to quit smoking. That's not easy. He's been doing it since he's 14 and he's 60 years old. So, knowing that we've got some, and he likes his bacon cheeseburgers.
Sure, yeah.
So, that part bothers me or doesn't bother me. I'm just trying to figure out how do I guess I'm just gonna have to be patient and know that he might be real crabby.
Do you have it scheduled?
No, we're gonna go meet with the surgeon tomorrow,
Okay.
but I suspect it'll be in the next week.
Okay.
Because, he's got 4 arteries that are 70% blocked, 2 that are 100% blocked, and he's already had a heart attack once. And he's got an aneurysm in his aorta, so they can't fix the aneurysm that is 6.5 millimeters, which is dangerously large, until they fix the heart.
Yeah.
And so time is really of the essence.
Well, you have to go back in and do that.
So it's thank you. It's definitely going to be a process. I will.
I'll be praying for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I needed that. Thank you. You forget how much you need a hug until someone hugs.
I know.
It's like, oh,
Pre-COVID,
I
it's
needed
like.
that.
I'm tired of it.
I know.
Okay, I had a heart attack. I did about double bypass. You can recover. I was playing softball 8 weeks after I had the surgery.
See, I think that he's been so restricted and it's been so gradual, he doesn't realize how hard he's working for the oxygen. That I think he'll feel instantly better once he's over the
Right, you gotta get over the actual
pain of the incision and stuff.
So it was an emergency, so you really, but I will say this, that in the recovery,
Mhm,
every day I would say, my husband,
Yeah.
mhm.
and then the next day, and I might, like, victory was the first day I got up and did my hair.
Mhm.
I like to say, oh, I did that, but I'm tired, I'm done for the day, but then the next day I'd be like, I think I could do that, then I think I could do that.
What can you do?
Yeah.
And so each day, we literally, my mom stayed there like a month. I stayed
Y'all can stay on.
there like a month. So my husband could go to work. But really by the end of that first month, I was doing stuff.
That's what
around
I
the
figure
house.
a month is what it's probably gonna take before
Yeah.
he's starting. Oh, you are too. So, I mean, I think within a month, I figure in my head, it's really a month of me helping, being around.
Well, you've got to.
Not to assume he can't do it, but to be there to help if he can't.
Yeah.
If he
asks
asks,
or whatever.
yeah.
And he could tell, how much, and mom was there, so they could kind of tell. And I'm just like, I just need to know for a while. You are protective of yourself enough, and he will be too,
Mhm.
that he'll let you know. Just don't let him get up and do something stupid, like
Right,
lift something.
don't climb up a ladder, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay, well, that's comforting, thank you.
I mean, I think that, there will be a place where, there will be some moments where you're like, I mean, like for my husband, he saw me die.
Mhm.
I mean, he was there when I had the heart attack.
Yesterday when I was sitting in the, I mean, we went for a stint. And so, but I knew, Carol, I knew this was gonna be more than a stint.
Well, they tried the stent on me, it did not work.
And that's, and so I was already kind of mentally prepared for the, what's coming. But being in that hospital waiting room, knowing that that's not the end of that, it's just kind of.
I didn't tell you what happened to my husband while he was waiting. I don't think I was supposed to story. So while he was waiting, he went down to the chapel. And there was a lady in there playing the piano, and he's a singer. And he went down, he said, "Will you play?" And so I could sing, because that was awesome. And she said yes. And so they sang for a little while, and says, "Well, I better go back and check on her." So I walked out and said, "But gosh, I didn't think her." And he went back in there.
She wasn't there, there wasn't anybody
There
there.
was nobody there.
Oh my gosh, that was me too.
No
Yeah.
other exits, no other anything. And he said, "I knew that was right." So,
You know, what's funny is this morning I was thinking, okay, bye, you're welcome. I was thinking about how little space I've had to really think this through because of the updates. Number one, I'm gonna have to turn over updates to somebody else so that I can be more present with them.
right.
Number two, I was thinking this morning in that waiting room with the amount of kids and everybody that's gonna wanna be there, that the chapel is probably gonna be my space to just get away and just be in quiet, because
Well, you're going
I'm
to
gonna
have
get
to.
overstimulated really
You are.
fast.
And, and the thing there is that you don't have, there's sometimes in a process like that, you're processing on your own and everybody else is feeding you too much negativity by positive thoughts.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
okay, so that's well-meaning,
Yeah,
but it sort of makes you feel worse in a way.
right.
Because they're sort of thinking he's not.
That
going
he's
to be, and
not,
that's
yeah,
when they're
yeah,
thinking-
like they're saying an
Yeah.
affirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I would be more like, you got faith in God, he's gonna make the right choice for you. It's all gonna be in his hands, and in his hands we're in a good place. So I think even that, getting away from too much pressure, over helping, that's right.
Mhm.
If people are over helping you, then you have to be a little cautious, because it can, for an independent person,
Mhm,
and that's me,
right,
for an independent person, I don't want to be smothered by it.
right.
I want to process.
And
the
that's
way I'm
why
gonna
my
process.
thoughts were having this done by having this done in Plano would be better because of the distance.
Yeah, it will eliminate some of that.
But we're doing it likely at TMC because Plano is so backlogged.
Yeah, get it done.
And he's just ready to get it done. And he feels more comfortable local because we just know, we know so many people on that floor.
Yeah, and you will have a support system.
Mhm,
A lot of people will be praying for you. And so, you'll have a support system, and you'll have those people, who those people are that will come in and meet you where you are because they know who you are.
Right.
And that's what, you just have
Yeah.
to be aware of. It's like with Monty, we had people at the church. While they were working on me, has good memory for numbers. And he just started calling, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And he just called our friends he knew that were prayer warriors. And he said, "Okay, here's what happened real quick. I just need you to pray." And he got on the phone and called the next person just by memory of who he knew. And so he knew who to reach out to, and they knew, "Okay, I'm praying now," or they would pray with him immediately. And I think that was, that's how he got through that moment, and then having to make a very difficult decision on, hey, we could save her here, but she could lose almost half her heart.
Yeah.
Or we could take her a riskier route and take her to Wichita.
And that's like
That's
yesterday,
hard.
it really, Jeff's brother ended up coming. Didn't expect him to come, and I didn't tell any of the kids that there was even an option for them to come. They didn't ask, and so I really thought I was gonna have some quiet time, while he was going through that, so I could spend my own time in prayer. And then his brother shows up.
Yeah.
And but his brother's also gone through 2 widowmaker heart attacks and all kind of other
Mine was a
issues.
widowmaker too.
And so, he having that knowledge and going through some of that, he's had stents, he hadn't had, a bypass. But still, it was helpful to have someone there, but at the same time, and that's the part, it's like, sometimes, and I think, Carol, some of that comes just from, we have so many kids here and grandkids that when I'm not working, there's still very little quiet time unless I'm very intentional about quiet time, or I get up early or stay up late for quiet time, because otherwise it's hard to find it. But
My
I'm gonna
quiet
have
time's
to
usually in
carve
my-
out some
in my
time for that.
car.
Mhm.
And even though I listen to music in my car, I always listen to Christian music in the car. And so my husband should travel all the way to Montana and never turn a radio on.
Mhm.
He doesn't,
Yeah, I'm a
he's
lot of
just like
times in
a-
the quiet,
he is like.
as long as I don't
total
pick up the phone or make a call or receive a call. But again, I'm gonna just have to be intentional with my
about it.
quiet time.
'Cause
Yeah.
You'll need it.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna share this with you. I was thinking about when I was reading for the class today.